So, Off the Floor, the podcast is back. We got a video element to it. Bringing back one of my favorite guests, and he's coming for a second return visit. We're going to be doing things in pairs, apparently, because it's Brent's second visit to the Off the Floor podcast, and we're also going to be talking about his second book. We talked a couple years ago, and a lot of stuff has changed since then. Not just the pandemic, but we're talking to an author, a leadership expert, entrepreneur, happens to be a Navy SEAL, took some dance lessons at Arthur Murray. There's so many things that we got going for you there, Brent, but I'm so happy to bring you back, and want to say too that I just noticed that your new book that we're going to be talking about is already a #1 new release on Amazon, so congratulations. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, brother. It's good to see you. It's good to be back, and I hope this event here finds you safe, healthy, and at least relatively sane.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I mean, I was just curious, when we were setting this up, during the pandemic, did you find that you were relying on maybe more business skills or like Navy SEAL skills just to keep your sanity? Like, what did you do? How did you pass the time and stay positive?
Probably a little bit of both. As you can imagine, I've done quite a few podcasts and some other just events and virtual keynotes with clients, and all topics sort of revolve around this new reality that we're all in. In large part, a lot of it really is about a lot of the principles in my first book, which is about leading through change, which, as we know, the fast-paced world of modern business was complex enough, and then now layering in a global pandemic, civil, social, and political unrest, an election year, economic and financial uncertainty. We're obviously all faced with new personal and professional challenges, the likes of which many of us have never experienced. There was no contingency plan for a global pandemic on anybody's business plan or personal life strategy. So these are, the situation is kind of what I refer to in the new book as a life ambush. And really, I think I would say from a professional standpoint, definitely leaning on, the business skill set around quickly taking stock of the current situation, and then more rapidly moving from sort of the causal thinking of, gosh, why this, why now, why us, why me, more rapidly into action-oriented execution. And that's where a lot of people or businesses I find get stuck, is they take too long looking for the cause and the reasoning why things happen, as opposed to saying, okay, this happens, this is in my control, this element is not in my control, what's in my control? Develop a plan, take action, and continue to move forward, course correcting as needed. But I think we're going to see a lot of good is going to come out of this. When adversity strikes, oftentimes I say, that's great, because adversity forces innovation, creativity, reassessment, reinvention, all things that are necessary for growth. Again, we don't all say, gosh, I hope a global pandemic comes along so I can develop some psychological resilience, but at the same time, sometimes that is the outcome.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, speaking of resilience, to come through all of this stuff with a new book, and then also, you had mentioned to me earlier, but don't you have some new things changing at home as well?
Yeah, we have a couple things dropping here at the end of the year. We got the new book, which came out yesterday, which was December 22nd, and a new baby to go along with the new book. So we figured, Chris, that 2020 wasn't chaotic enough, so why don't we just have another human?
I can't relate at all.
You know the drill.
There's got to be some sort of parallel in terms of lack of sleep to like SEAL training at some point. Like, do those two things cross paths at any point?
They do. Sleep deprivation is a part of SEAL training, of course, and quite frankly, just SEAL life. When you're operating, and then of course, as you well know, that that's just a part of being a parent. Yeah, but those parts, they go by so fast. You're like, oh gosh, we're not going to be sleeping for a few months, and the next thing you know, your kid's 4.
Yeah. Oh man, that's awesome. Well, as far as just writing the second book, let's just talk about what was your process going into it. Were you writing it largely like before the pandemic? Were you doing it during? Like, how did that all come about?
Yeah. Going into this project, of course, I didn't realize that 2020 would, suck so bad. So selfishly, the timing of the book is quite perfect because everyone will have had a rough year, and all the reasons I mentioned at the beginning of the show. It's gotten a lot of accolades around the fact that, wow, what a perfect time for a book like this. Because it's really counterintuitive, more gritty, in-your-face self-improvement narrative, different than your typical sort of self-help genre type of book where it's a lot of happy talk and things. And also, each chapter has an execution model, which I call a mental model, or a framework that you can actually implement within your life to reassess values or plan better, debrief better, or avoid temptation. I like to always, as you've seen in my writings, I always like to make sure that there's an executable model or framework that people can actually use, as opposed to, wow, that was a great read.
Yeah.
On to the next. With the first book being really about leadership and culture and business transformation, one thing that I realized going through a lot of the interactions with our clients all over the world for leadership development, you can't create a high performance team without transforming the mindset and behavior of the individuals in that team to higher levels of performance, higher levels of resilience, dealing with adversity and conflict, which are all, unfortunately, critical leadership traits in any walk of life, personally and professionally. And so I was like, well, what if, I take some of these principles and create a different kind of self-improvement, book that really focuses on developing mental fortitude and being intentional and how we expand our comfort zone, both in our professional lives and our personal lives, any endeavor when it comes to pursuing lofty goals. And so I started doing some research, and like I said, I didn't really find the type of self-help book. I'd never read one before, so I didn't really know how to write one. So buying all these different books, and a lot of great books out there. It's like one of, if not the most popular genre when it comes to books of that nature. And a lot of fluff, a lot of good reads, creative writing, but not a lot of things that would really stick with me, anyways. Mark Manson, I love his work, very creative. His books have killed it. Again, a little more counterintuitive approach to the personal transformation journey, like his first book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving Up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then the second, his titles are so great. And the second one is Everything is Effed.
Yeah.
A book about hope.
Yeah.
I just read the titles and I'm just rolling.
Yeah.
So that's where we began. And then I had submitted the first round of the manuscript towards the end of 2019, maybe in January. And so we started going into edits, and then the pandemic hit in March. So it was actually an interesting opportunity to go back during my first and second pass edits and make some light references to our current situation. And while the book obviously is meant to be timeless and its philosophies and principles apply in any situation, these are historic times that we'll be talking about and writing about for many, many years to come. So it was kind of cool to be able to go back and reference the pandemic or some of the current situations businesses are in right now. So unfortunate, but a good opportunity to reference it, so it's really relevant for any reader right now.
Oh, that's great. So the title is Embrace the Suck, and I remember you had mentioned, we had talked about that in our last interview too, and I just thought when I saw the title, I was like, oh, this is going to be good. So what's you've kind of referenced it a little bit already. What's the mentality, kind of bring everybody up to speed of Embrace the Suck? What does that mean to you and to just like the SEAL way of doing things, and why should that be so important to people kind of moving into 2021?
Sure. The title being Embrace the Suck, the Navy SEAL Way to an Extraordinary Life. And it's got a foreword by my friend and teammate David Goggins, who I know a lot of your listeners will know who he is, retired SEAL, world-renowned ultra athlete. And the term Embrace the Suck was, born in the military, I believe originally in the Marine Corps. I have to look that up to see exactly who first said this. And it's obviously been widely adopted inside and even outside the military. It's definitely a term used in SEAL training. And in its simplest form, it's pretty self-evident. It really means to not just accept adversity, obstacles, pain, suffering, and challenges that are all inevitable for all of us in life, but to accept them, lean into them, and find opportunity amidst the chaos when adversity does strike. And I get a lot of questions like, well, what about people right now who've lost their business or lost loved ones, and how do you embrace that? And obviously, we want to be sensitive to the nature of a lot of the suffering that's going on out there, and suffering that is always out there in the world. But finding ways for people to gain enough strength and insight to continue to move forward, to find, that opportunity amidst the pain and suffering they're in, and even potentially find ways to gain enlightenment or insight or perspective within their lives that they can share with others. And, if you look at different cultures, in the Western cultures, we have a tendency to avoid pain and suffering at all costs and seek pleasure as much as humanly possible, in any way possible.
Yeah.
Whereas Eastern cultures, since the beginning of whenever, tend to see pain and suffering and adversity as not just part of life, but a strategic imperative to gain wisdom on that meandering path towards greater enlightenment. And so there's something to be learned from that type of mindset. And so the book really is about thinking about how can we change that narrative in our minds about what real adversity truly is, and getting out there and thinking, who else out there has it probably a lot worse than I do? Because there's always someone who has it a lot worse than you do, despite how horrible your situation might be. And I share some stories in the book, not so much from me necessarily, but from other daring people who've overcome extreme adversity. And they're some of the happiest, most motivational, and driven people I've ever met. And we can get into some of the details on that, but and there's a lot of behavioral science and psychology that shows that people who have overcome extreme situations, whether it be surviving and being a prisoner of war, or the Holocaust, or beating cancer, losing loved ones, typically, for the most part, after they go through that sort of emotional continuum, they are more enlightened and they do see the world through a different lens. They're emotionally more mature. They're better people in a sense, because they understand what really matters to them.
Yeah, I know. It's we always talk about that with challenges, in that if you went to the gym and they took all the weights away from you, you'd probably go to a different gym, and you need to have the weight of adversity to get stronger. And I think that's, I think it's awesome what you said about, just building that perspective, and sometimes it takes that huge setback to set you up for that next rung up the self-improvement ladder. I was going to ask you, what's if there is like a story in the book that you feel like was like just one of your favorite ones, or as you're reading it, you just, you're like, ooh, this is going to be good. Like, is there one that you can think of that you'd want to share?
Yeah, I try to take a different approach with this book. So there's stories, obviously there's stories, some of my journey into the SEAL teams and combat. There's stories about some of my brothers from the SEAL teams and their journeys of overcoming much more extreme adversity than I've ever experienced. But then also stories that are inspiring about elite athletes, or historical figures such as polar explorers and the adversity they've overcome. So kind of trying to take interesting learnings from different walks of life, and then there's some parables in the story that I just made up to try and paint the picture around avoiding temptation, or pushing the boundaries of your comfort zone and making better choices when it comes to being a little more daring and taking a little more calculated risk. But one of the powerful stories in the book is obviously it's a story with a silver lining and happy ending, but it's a story of one of my former teammates, friend Jason Redman, who was a SEAL officer, a great combat leader. And as it sometimes happens, more often than not, he got horribly injured a week before deploying home. I mean, it's like the worst things on a deployment always happen right before you're literally about to get on a plane and go home to safer places. They were basically going after a high value target, an Al Qaeda leader, high ranking. They'd been looking for this guy their entire deployment. The intel came down. It was about as good as it's going to get. Basically, this guy's going to be here at this time tonight. We're going. And they hit the target. It was what we call a dry hole. Nobody was there. And once they were doing their SSE, or sensitive site exploitation, basically gathering as much intel from the target as they could, they got radioed by the Spectre gunship, which is providing air support for them. They had enemy squirters, which are like enemy fleeing from target down the road about 50 meters, heavily armed enemy running into an open field. So typically our standard operating procedure is to make pursuit. So he gathered up some of the SEALs and their Iraqi counterparts, and they made pursuit. And if you've ever forged ahead through thick brush at nighttime wearing night vision goggles, they don't do much good. So visibility was low. The two elements got separated because they were on different frequencies. Jason was trying to maintain comms with the gunship as well as both teams, and somehow they got on different frequencies. They got separated within the field. Long story short, they walked into an ambush that had been planned. There was a bunker, barricaded position, heavy machine guns, and one of his corpsmen stepped on one of the enemy fighters as they were walking through the brush. The guy rolled over. Luckily, that guy took action before the enemy fighter did, and then all hell broke loose. Jason initially got hit multiple times in helmet, in the chest, in his body armor, and then through the arm, almost severing his left arm at the elbow. And so he went down hard. His night vision goggles were blown off. And this wasn't an AK-47. This is a much larger caliber stationary machine gun.
Wow.
And he went down. He's the leader. That's why everybody in the team leads. So the other guys started calling the gunship for air support. Air support was denied because it was so close. There was like 15 meters between the bunker and where they were. So we call that dropping ordnance danger close, which oftentimes they don't want to do because we're going to kill our own. And the gunfight was raging on. Jason realized that he had to get out of the middle of the firefight because his guys were now behind the only cover that they possibly could have, which was a big tractor tire. The bunker was here. He was right in the middle. Wow. And so he did the only thing he could do was he got up and he started running. And as soon as he got up, he took a round, right through the right side of his face, in front of his ear, came out where his nose used to be, and then went back down. And obviously his teammates figured the worst. They kept fighting. Can't render medical aid in that type of situation because you got to win the fight first. Otherwise, everybody's going to go down.
Yeah.
And yet he was unconscious. Then he came to. They were shocked because he was like, "Give me a head count. When's that medevac coming in?" They're like, "I can't believe he was even alive."
Oh my gosh.
So he kept bleeding despite his severe injuries, and he was losing blood fast. And their JTAC or Joint Terminal Air Controller, the SEAL was basically radios with the gunship. Asked one last time, we're going to die if you guys don't drop. So here's the coordinates, drop. And they finally said, all right, give me your JTAC number. We'll approve it. Basically saying, when they say, give me your JTAC number, they say, hey, just know this is on you if you guys don't make it. Wow. And they dropped. Luckily, the gunship dropped it perfectly so that it destroyed the bunker, but didn't hurt the SEALs. And then that helicopter came in, and Jason was telling me, he said, it hurt so bad when they were trying to drag me to the helicopter. He was like, just get off me. And he just walked unassisted to the helicopter with like his face like blown open.
Oh my gosh.
His arm like hanging by a thread. And anyways, he was taken to Walter Reed Medical Hospital in Bethesda, Maryland. And he got, the interesting part of the story is where his, where you start learning about what true resilience and that type of overcome mindset really is he got so frustrated with people continually coming in to visit him, teammates, friends, family, just crying over his wounds. And I can't believe this happened to you. And the doctor's giving him lists of things he would never be able to do again. And he was just like, everybody stop. Mm-hmm. So he got this huge, it's like a hot pink poster board. And in black marker, he wrote a note on it to hang on his door. And it basically said, for all those who enter here, if you're coming here to cry over my wounds or feel sorry for me, go elsewhere. This is a room of rapid regrowth, of healing, of fun, of forward thinking. Basically, if you're not ready for that, don't come in. And it's signed the management. And that poster actually caught the attention of the then President George W. Bush, and he got invited to the White House. It now hangs in the wounded areas of that hospital. It's framed and everything. Wow. And he took that list with him of all the stuff the doctor said he could never do. And guess what he does? Every single thing on that list, almost on a daily basis, when it comes to fitness and working out and skydiving and all the things he loved doing as a SEAL, he does now. And then, of course, he takes it a step further. He's a 2-time best-selling author, world-renowned motivational speaker, an entrepreneur, a business consultant. And he's like the happiest guy I know. Wow. Married, with children. So stories like that where you think, gosh, COVID-19 or struggling to save the business or, my relationship or marriage is struggling. Sure, those are all aspects of life in our current reality, but, think about what true adversity really is and how other people have not only overcome it, but thrived in it and have grown in a monumental way as people.
Man, I feel like business owners need to put a sign like that on the door when they're reopening, right?
Exactly.
I think there's people too that they feel like they're doing someone a service by worrying about them, or they feel like they're doing someone a service by crying over their wounds or by dwelling on it. And so it sounds like for him, he was kind of giving everybody a lesson in like probably what everybody that's gone through some sort of setback really wants to feel is like, what's the next step instead of the last step?
Yeah, he was telling them to suck it up.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay, you know what, you're right. And we've also found too that, and this is research based as well, that altruism and giving back and giving to causes greater than yourself are also a great way for the individual to heal. A lot of veterans with post-traumatic stress, for example, one of the most healing things they do is by mentoring other veterans with post-traumatic stress. Because once we start making it about other people and less about us and stop dwelling on the causal thinking, why me, why now, and making it about someone else, you're not dwelling on all that stuff anymore. And you realize that you can help others, and in a way, you're healing by doing that.
Oh man, I love that. So now, like going into 2021, there's so many businesses right now that are kind of almost like a tornado went through some Midwestern town, and you have to kind of go in and just survey the damage. What would be your recommendations, for somebody that's kind of feeling like they're starting over at square one?
Yeah, as you can imagine, we've been doing a lot of events and consulting and workshops over the past 8 months with even large organizations like Google and Salesforce and Facebook and the NFL, because everybody's trying to kind of wrap their heads around this new normal. Step one, put away the phrases when this is all over and when things go back to normal. There's no such thing as that. And stop thinking about 2021. This is going to be a continuum. There's no sense in thinking about it as, okay, well, thank God 2020 is over. No, 2021 is going to be very similar in many, many ways, but both good and bad. Like we touched on, there's a lot of innovation, a lot of creativity, a lot of reinvention. Small businesses and large businesses have recapitalized. They've rethought the things they waste tons of time, energy, and money on and resources on. Rethinking their workspace needs, their workforce needs, how they embrace technology, just like this. And so a lot of digital transformation, for example, that's been forced on us just for survival is something that would normally take an organization, even a small business, a year or more to implement and roll out and gain the buy-in from the team. And here's how we're going to do things, guys. And you're going to work from home, but we're going to be on Zoom all day. People are like, no, that's insanity. What are you talking about? And here we are. So that's a couple things. But also, we've been doing a lot of work around better learning how to lead and manage remote teams. And from a leadership perspective, really leaning into those soft skills that a lot of leaders just kind of shy away from. They're always a critical pillar for any good leadership, but they're more important now than ever. Empathy, emotional intelligence, good communication skills, reconnecting the team to the vision or the new vision of what we're trying to accomplish, helping people understand exactly how their job function and day-to-day activities drive mission success. Because a lot of organizations now who haven't had to furlough a lot of people or let employees go, the employees are working just as hard, if not harder, but in large part on different things and in different ways, which requires sort of a new shift in activity, and therefore a new shift in mindset and belief and the adoption of the new way of doing things. And frankly, a shift in the culture. It's going into now, more of working in a virtual world. So virtual culture is something that kind of has to be reformulated. Not a shift away from the organization's traditional mission or core values, but a change in behavior and thinking from everybody on the team, which obviously is a large pillar of what a culture is. So those are a few things that organizations need to be thinking of as they continue to move down this path, and not thinking that things are just going to go back to normal, but adopting the new way of doing things and using this opportunity for innovation and rethinking how they work internally and how they engage with their clients and customers.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I think, this is so helpful and, relevant for so many people, business owners or not. I mean, just people in general. I mean, it's amazing that we have something that we can all identify with, and we all feel like we've kind of hit that, go directly to jail square on the Monopoly board, and we've kind of trying to get out of it. It wasn't the plan to have a pandemic, and you weren't planning on writing a pandemic-related book, but it just sort of fits, kind of like adding a new member to the family. So, I think it's just so awesome that you made the time. I know this is a really busy week. We got Christmas in a couple days. You got a book. You got a baby on the way. So I just want to thank you for making the time to come and do this.
No, absolutely. It's good to be here.
Yeah. Hey, well, the final thought is I want you just to share one word or one thought, but something that you want everyone to kind of take away from, whether it's the book or from this year or the silver lining of 2020. But what's your final thought for everybody that's watching or listening?
Really just to, again, going back to some of the principles of the book, embrace this new reality, take stock of the current situation, make a list of things that are in your control and sphere of influence, and a list of things that are not in your control. Push those to the side. Don't ignore them because you need to maintain situational awareness. But then use the things that are in your control to course correct or develop a new plan. Enhance your own way of thinking about the path ahead. Continue to maintain good wellness activities, good sleep. Try not to self-medicate as much as some of us have been doing for the past few months. Work out, make time for small breaks, and embrace the time that we have, with our family, and beyond that, just continuing, despite the adversity that we're in, to work on yourself, work on your personal accountability and your discipline. Oftentimes you're like, whoa, accountability, discipline, that sounds kind of intense and not fun. But, people who are more personally accountable and more disciplined have greater freedom. They accomplish or exceed more of their goals. They have better relationships. Usually they're healthier, and they live a more fulfilling life. So think of those two things as not bad things, but as essential for, gaining wisdom through some of these challenging times. Other than that, just stay positive and keep moving ahead.
That's so great. All right. So, Brent, where can people check you out, and where's the best place to pick up the book?
Sure. The book is, again, Embrace the Suck, Navy SEAL Way to an Extraordinary Life, great forward by David Goggins. It's available on all online retailers, the Amazons of the world, Barnes & Noble, etc. It's in actual brick and mortar bookstores, if people remember those, like Barnes & Noble. And social media wise, I'm on Instagram, Brent_Gleeson, of course, professionally on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. So, and the company website is takingpointleadership.com.
That's awesome. Well, Brent, it's been so great to have you. We're going to put a link to the book and everything in the post. So if you are watching this right now, make sure that you click that link, and then also, connect with Brent on social media. That's how we ended up getting connected. And the funny story that I told the last time was, when we were trying to coordinate our first podcast interview, you jumped in on the conversation and was like, where do you think I learned how to dance with my wife, And so we have an Arthur Murray connection there too. I know.
Small world, it keeps getting smaller.
I'm telling you. Hey, well, best of luck with the book. I'm sure it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to picking up a copy, and also with the baby, and Merry Christmas. I mean, can we tie more things together?
Merry Christmas, brother. Give our love to the family. Thanks for having me on the show. Good to see you, and I'm sure I'll be talking to you soon.
Sounds good. All right, that's Brent Gleeson, everybody, and make sure that you click that link. And thanks so much for jumping back in to the podcast and the video element as well of Off the Floor. I'm Chris Lynam, and I've been your host. And make sure that you tune in for our upcoming interviews and more podcasts to come with no baby interruptions.